My name is Newt, short for Newton, here in the Newman's household. Mom and Dad are on the phone talking to people, busy making preparations for Chris' big game. Yes, my big brother is none other than Chris Newman, Appleton's football star and all-round Mr. Popular. Me? I'm the short, skinny younger brother that goes unnoticed. But it's all good. I couldn't be more proud of Chris. I went to his room to wake him up. "Hit the showers!" I yelled on top of my lungs. Chris fell out of bed and started chasing me to the backyard. I set the hose on him with freezing water, drenching him from head to toe. Mom and Dad came dashing out astonished. "Now let's all have some breakfast," I said casually. When I got to Appleton Elementary, I met my friends, JJ and Cecil. Cecil was excited but not about the big game. He was excited about Halloween. Cecil suggested that we make our own costumes this year. That got me thinking, who can I go as? Who is my inner hero? But there was no time to be thinking about costumes. The night of the big game was finally here. Everyone was cheering for Chris and his team. Reggie Redner from the rival team had his eye on Chris. The ball was tossed to Chris. He bravely made his way for a touchdown. And Chris scores, giving Fillmore the victory win. The crowd went wild with cheers, but just as soon after, there was a stunned silence. Chris was lying motionless on the ground. Coaches and doctors scrambled to his side. I held my breath as the ambulance drove Chris to the hospital with my very distraught parents. I was anxious. I tried to replay the last touchdown in my mind. Did Reggie Redner really knock my brother unconscious? Later in the evening, I got a call from Dad. He said everything about Chris was fine, except that Chris was in a coma. Over the course of few days, I was juggling between answering phone calls from concerned strangers to worrying about my brother. I was so distracted, I almost forgot about Halloween. By the time I remembered, I scrambled to find what I could wear. In my frenzy, I just put on Chris' old jersey and track pants. I opened my front door. JJ and Cecil looked amazing. I felt sheepish looking at myself, but my friends made a few modifications to my costume. The finishing touch, JJ put a red mask over my eyes. I suddenly felt a surge of confidence in me, like the mask protected me. The next day for school, Mom had forgotten to put the laundry in the dryer. I had no clean clothes to wear. With a gulp, I put on my costume and made my way to school. Kids were surprised to see me. Some started to tease. Well, things escalated and here I was outside Principal Toomey's office. I could hear loud voices coming from inside the room. But eventually, they let me keep the costume on. Everyone felt sorry for me because of what happened to Chris. For the rest of the day, I was Captain Nobody and not Newt Newman. Slowly and remarkably, I began to experience little adventures of my own as Captain Nobody. One day, as I was helping Cecil collect an old drum from the dumpster, I found Mr. Clay wandering lost and confused. He was our old locksmith till Mom said he was losing touch with reality. After I took him home, I rang the doorbell and hit. Mrs. Clay came out, so happy and relieved Mr. Clay came home. Cecil said that was really heroic. Another time, it was really surreal. I met JJ who begged me to ask the jewelry store owners to correct the spelling on their sign. I didn't know I had walked into a robbery. While the robber was distracted by me, Mr. Sullivan, the owner, pressed the alarm button. I didn't wait to see what would happen in the end. I grabbed JJ and ran. The robbery was all over the news, but they could not identify me. JJ called me and was all excited. Captain Nobody was making headway. I told her she had to keep quiet about this. I don't wish to put my family through another crisis. The next day at school, Chris' teammate brought the school mascot. Ferocious the ferret, to our class. They wanted to instill some team spirit back in spite of what happened to Chris, so one lucky person would get to take Ferocious home. That lucky person was me, although honestly I did not feel so lucky. On the way home, we met some kids from Merrimack Fillmore's rival team. Reggie has been getting threats and being harassed for what happened to Chris. Ricky, his cousin, came to seek revenge. Ferocious got spooked and bounded through the highway. Cecil, JJ, and I went after him. Cars all round us screeched to a halt. In the midst of angry, honking horns, a small airplane with smoke coming out of its engine was headed straight for us. I ducked. The plane made its way to the open freeway where the cars had stopped and landed with the high-pitched squeal of its tires. Everyone gaped at the dramatic scene. I felt something on my foot. It was Ferocious. I scooped him up quickly and ran home. We saw the news explaining how the airplane had an engine failure and had to make an emergency landing. According to onlookers, a kid in a crazy costume was waving his arms, running through the highway, stopping everyone. Was he a hero or a lunatic? All these incidents took a toll on me. I just wanted to see my brother. It was then I decided to stop being Captain Nobody. That night, I had a dream about the airplane incident. For some reason, the cars morphed into football players. I was back at the big game, Chris going for that touchdown, when out of the corner, Daryl Peeps came plunging down and his helmet rammed into my brother's. I woke up breathing hard. It was Daryl Peeps, not Reggie Redner, who put Chris in a coma. As fate would have it, Reggie Redner was seen high up on the town's old water tower. People are speculating that he had been too depressed by the constant harassment. He's thinking about ending his life. I felt I need to tell the truth, but what can short, timid Newt Newman do? I ran to put my costume on, morphing into Captain Nobody once more. My fear of heights almost took over. The rickety ladder barely held my weight and strong wind had blew my mast away. Nonetheless, I climbed to the top of the tower and yelled at Reggie not to take his own life. He looked at me confused. Sheepishly, he admitted he was there to spray paint the tower, and somehow his foot got stuck on the roof. We managed to get Reggie's foot free. A helicopter was flying all over us, watching the whole incident. On the ground, the responders had set up a rubber mattress. While climbing down the ladder, it gave away and we both fell, plunging all the way down. I landed first, and Reggie, with his 280-pound frame, landed on top of me. Everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital. My parents told me I had a broken ankle and 2 broken ribs. It occurred to me, I'm at the hospital. I need to see Chris. I looked over and he was beside me, still in a coma. My parents were bewildered as to why I was at the water tower. I told them everything. That night, when I was alone with Chris, I stared at his face. He looked so small. I remembered all the silly things we used to do. Without thinking, I yelled out loud, "Hit the showers!" I covered my mouth. The nurses came in annoyed, but from the bedside, a pillow suddenly came bounding at me and a small voice could be heard. "I am up. I am up." There was much crying and laughing after that. All the news about Captain Nobody's heroic acts came out thanks to JJ and Cecil. Few days later, there was a big parade. I was in one of the floats with Chris, and we waved at the crowd while cheers and confetti rained down on us. The crowd was cheering my name. They knew my name. When all the excitement had passed, Chris and I were in my room one night, and we talked something both of us had not had a chance to do in a long while. "I'm glad you're home, Chris," I said. We high-fived each other. Yep, it was a good day.